We are back. It is New Year's in 2024, and we are in the Phoenix studio. You're probably busy watching the MJ BizCon series, which is a whole lot of information that's being pushed out through Meet Unshackled over the month of January. But we are pleased to intermix this with a wonderful, wonderful guest who we look forward to introducing you. We look forward to introducing to our audience. I'm a little confused right now. I need to drink more coffee. But our Yoko from Leafly, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Happy New Year.
Good. How things going? So let's start from the beginning. How did you get involved in the cannabis industry? And then we'll talk about Leafly.
And then we'll talk about Leafly. I got involved in, let me tell you a little bit of background here. Lawyer by training, and spent, first 20 years of my career in private practice and in-house, and, spent 14 years with an amazing media organization, Getty Images. And, I live in Washington State, right? One of the first states to go rec legal. And I remember thinking about, and that's 2012 now, we're almost 14 years into, 12 years into post-rec legalization. And you just ever have that feeling where you're like, I need to work in this space.
Yeah, the 2012. That's when I started.
That was exactly it. I just knew in my heart of hearts, like, I got to work in this space. And a lot of that for me came from, I had given up cannabis after kind of doing all my, teen and college, everything, got teenage kids now. So watching sort of this come out, but I had just stopped consuming. But at the same time, as a lawyer who had done a lot of work in policy and advocacy, watching this industry build on and the foundation and laying the tracks for that, I just knew in my heart of hearts, I have to work for this space. And lucky for me, Leafly, right? Top media brand, top education information, super passionate about that. That's been a part of my background and training as a professional for the last 20 years, headquartered here in my backyard. So it was really just one of those things where the opportunity arose, right time in career, and just had to follow that curiosity to be a part of this, to be a part of building this. And that's what led me to Leafly in 2019.
And that's 2019. You started with Leafly. On another podcast, I want to ask you about the teenage culture of cannabis use in Japan, because you were born and raised in Japan. Is that right?
Born there, raised here.
Born there, raised here. Okay, so your teenage years were here.
My teenage years were here. I also got stories of raising teenagers right now. And that's a whole nother podcast.
But it's just a fascinating thing, because as I've traveled around the world studying cannabis policy, community culture, industry, etc., there's always this unique culture around cannabis use, homeopathic, medicinal, sometimes abuse oriented, state to state, country to country. And I know nothing about what cannabis is perceived and what it's like in Japan for the high school kids, and how they get introduced to it in the college years, or the homeopathic medicinal stuff. It's this entire like Anthony Bourdain series that needs to be done about cannabis. So
count me in. I'll take that episode. We'll go together.
Yeah, because it's the industry is evolving. It's very important, but a lot of what makes cannabis special is this culture that was inadvertently created by 50 years of prohibition, and so it's a fascinating concept.
Well, let me just rewind the clock, and what I am just one of the many things I'm passionate about in the space, and what we do at Leafly is, hey, let's reconnect people to the culture and history of cannabis consumption, because prior to 1920, this is a plant that's been used in medicinal and cultural practices for hundreds, in some cultures, thousands of years. And, for us to be able to surface those stories and reconnect people to the plant prior to prohibition, I'm really passionate about that. And I'll never forget early on when I started talking to a Japanese friend of mine, and she was talking me through, there's a very special, unique spice that we use. It's a 7-pepper Japanese spice. She's telling me about her mom who used to make this, and how she used hemp as part of it. And hemp seeds were part of her recipe for Japanese 7 spice. And like, it is those little snippets of history that have been lost as a result of burying this through the blanket prohibition for the last 100 years.
And you know what? And this is why I want to do the Anthony. We might be launching a business model here or something as we talk, but this is why I want to do this. Anthony Bourdain around the world, understanding, remembering, uh, uh, memorializing the history of and use of cannabis culture by culture, because what could happen is that, say, not Budweiser, but there's like a mass media, a mass commercialization of cannabis rapidly coming and just smashing all these local ideas, you know what I'm saying? And that there's always that balance maybe in every industry, but I can kind of see that coming. And some of the people who are more like widget minded in nature might not be as interested in preserving that and understanding that and sharing that. So seven pepper Japanese spice, does it have a name?
Shichimi. Shichimi.
Shi-chi-mi. Okay, if anyone out there uses that as a new strain, you know, give credit to Yoko and Leafly. So tell us about what Leafly does, because I know you guys are involved in education, and it's a beautiful company, wonderful company. Tell us about Leafly a little bit.
It starts with education about the plant, right? Education and information about the plant. Why do we tell these stories? Because we have to connect people with what the plant offers, both from a data, culture, and just basic education piece. And that, you know, that is the one exciting thing about legalization and where we are on this journey today. We actually now have science, i.e. lab data, actual real studies starting to happen finally, to back up what people have known for hundreds of thousands of years. Let's remember, right? Plant used in medicinal practices. AMA opposed prohibition in 1920. So for us, it's been a journey over the last 14 years of surfacing this education and information. And what are we known for? We are renowned for our strains database, over 6,000 entries today. And what we've been trying to do is really cultivate and help educate consumers about what weed is right for you. And, you know, it starts with, hey, you know, if you understand this plant, you know that it has so many different properties. And because of our endocannabinoid systems, we all process weed differently, different strains, different form factors. And there is this, I love the test and learn process around cannabis consumption. And we've been really here to provide that information to help users curate their journeys around cannabis, right? And build that appreciation for it. There's a second piece of this. The education and information part is a key part of destigmatization and normalization of the plant. And so we view that mission as twofold. And when you can provide that information to consumers, for us, it's a key part of moving the world into legalized cannabis. And what we found is providing that information, we've attracted millions of consumers, right? Over 7 million monthly active users coming to Leafly to learn about cannabis. That's 14 years ago, over 7 million a month, right? And that's worldwide because they want information. They've been starved for education and information about cannabis. And what we learned is it's not enough to educate you about cannabis. I need to help you find it. I'm going to help you find it at your local licensed stores. I'm going to help introduce you to the licensed brands that are producing the products you need to try or buy. And that's how we've essentially built a multi-sided platform rooted in education and science and information for the consumer, and helping you complete that journey through placing an order with your local dispensary.
Focusing on education, actually, I was thinking as you were talking about all the educational things, if I may just stick in a little experience, you know, I was just in Colombia and I was with my friend who gave birth, and she had a choice. There's that 40-day period, and her grandmother is a holistic healer, her mother. And her mother, so her sister is very Western medicine. They're very young. And so they were going with the Western medicine's recommendations. And in comes her mother, who's like 60 years old, with all these herbal remedies and alcohol and like spirits and stuff, creates this brew and starts rubbing it on her. And I'm sitting there like, you know what? I don't know what the hell's going on here, but you know, there's these pills over here that are supposed to help with healing. And then there's this over here. And mother knows best. And so, and we all need education about what remedies are out there in the world. So what you guys do at Leafly is fantastic. And I found in 2013, 14, 15, whenever I started first looking at Leafly, that people were like drawn to you because of your educational content. It's like the first stop to where to go to learn about cannabis, which is a fantastic, fantastic resource. Do you work closely with like bud tenders? Is that what one of the front lines is? How does that relationship work?
We absolutely, I've been really working to cultivate our relationship with bud tenders over the last couple of years. We inaugurated International Bud Tender Day. That is a Leafly holiday, and have really been working on cultivating that relationship. And it's really interesting because whenever I go into a store, I always chat with the bud tenders. I don't necessarily tell them who I am, but I always want to know, hey, like think about the trust that's placed in that bud tender relationship. When you walk into a store, just hang out for 10 minutes, watch them, listen to the conversations. The trust that's placed in the bud tender to recommend a product on that, what should I try or buy? It's such a critical point for that consumer. It's make or break. I think about that a lot in terms of you've got your very educated consumers who don't need the help of a bud tender, but everyone who's coming into legal cannabis and trying to figure this out, like that is that crux and that touch point. And what I learned from them, and I listen to these conversations, and I always want to know, how are you educating yourself? And they always say, hey, I go to Leafly a lot. Tell my consumers to go to Leafly. And that like couldn't be, it is such an amazing compliment to hear from a bud tender. So cultivating that relationship with the bud tender, making sure they have access to the science that and that's the bud tenders we know of. But I know, a good portion of those consumers, because think about who your best bud tenders are. Your best bud tenders are your best consumers of weed. They are trying this. They are going through that experimentation themselves.
And that's what META kind of focuses on, that million individuals across the world that are involved in the cannabis industry, many of whom are bud tenders. So in the future, I think that we should have like a special like video segment of Demitri Downing's not so scientific, not necessarily proven, hokey traditional uses of cannabis around the world.
I think the travel segment for sure.
Yeah.
And maybe they're hokey and maybe they're not. Maybe they're really effective. Like
exactly.
How many how many friends? I got a couple of friends who like I fall squarely in that middle-aged consumer set. Our option, we're really here for pain, we're here for sleep and for relaxation, because we realized alcohol really not doing it. It's impeding all of these things. Or in my case, I don't process alcohol. I can't drink alcohol. What do I do on a Friday evening when I'm ready to just relax and sit down? And I'll never forget it. Two friends who had hip replacements right around the same time. And they came to me and they said, look, we've got about 300 oxys here. I don't want to start taking them. This is what my doctors prescribe. What can we do here on the weed side? And they throw them all out. And with good reason. And so like hokey or truly effective. Hokey and effective. There's a reason behind this.
I just want to grab their anecdotal stories. Like my grandmother from Oaxaca, deep in the mountains, they would use marijuana for pain remedy. They'd mix it with agua diente, a local liquor, and they would use it as a pain remedy. I mean, it might be one of the greatest pain remedies ever. I don't know. So certainly it might just be lost in the annals of history. It'd be challenging for my grandmother to get a license in all these limited licensing states. But that's another issue we don't need to talk about. But you want to grab those, and there's things yet undiscovered across the world. But you guys are offering, what's really cool is that most people in modern society need some sort of scientific data-driven education or trust in order to try something. And so you guys offer that to the consumer in spades, which is great.
And like it, to me, there's that first interaction, right? Coming back to cannabis, like I want you to be educated because it may not be a perfect fit on your first try. I want you to have the scientific understanding and basis to understand you're going to have to test and learn your way into this to find the right products for you. Let me make sure you understand that if you're going to have an edible, give it an hour or two. Don't go eating 5 of those because you're going to be having a pretty rough night. And so how can I take that person through that journey to find what is the right form factor, what is the right product for you, and place an order for that product? Like taking you through that journey is core to our mission. We want to get you from the start to the finish. That's your novice. But for your highly experienced consumer, I want you to be able to go deep on your strain knowledge. Find out what's hot in your market. Find out what's trending and why. What are the genetics of this strain that you like? What do you need to go out there and try? Because it's either, trending on Leafly, or we're seeing a lot of bud tenders recommended, or we're seeing a lot of orders for it. Like everyone's at some point on their journey, and we are here to take you through that and connect you with players who can help you find that product.
Before I get back into Leafly and what else you guys do and what else you guys have on the horizon, I just want to get your experience, your perspective on, you came into this industry in 2019, I believe, and you came from another industry. I think a lot of people who watch our series also want to learn about how they can get into the industry as well. They're using this as an educational platform at all different levels. What do you have any reflections upon that transition and what that was like? And it's a big question, but what impacts you most about the difference between the non-cannabis industries and the cannabis industry?
The biggest difference I see, I don't know a harder industry to work in. If you succeed in this space, you're succeeding with an arm and a leg, maybe 2 legs tied behind your back. And so the creativity, the resiliency, the obstinance and persistence you have to bring to stay alive, let alone thrive. It's not for those thinking they come into weed and make the easy buck, right? Like people make that mistake so easily, and they wash out quick. They wash out quickly. I love your story of you went and worked for your brother, right? Like you got to actually have hands on plant.
Right.
And sort of have evolved into this. And if I had one regret of what I wish I had done, I wish I had done that. I wish I had actually gone and bud tended and just sat through the operations piece. For me, this was really like an intellectual thing of policy, legislation. How do we set the rails for this?
You could do like a little guest bud tender thing for like 30 minutes or an hour with like the Leafly CEO is doing a guest bud tending in New Jersey at Verano or something like that.
Totally. Like that is a little bit of like a dream project I have of I would love to oftentimes when I'm hanging out in the stores, I'm like, oh, I wish I could work the counter. I would love to have this interactive conversation with you around, hey, Demitri, what are you here for today? What are you looking for?
Some sort of like undercover boss type thing.
I think you've now spun up 2 different shows.
You know what we could do? We're really good friends with a lot of the retailers in Arizona. And there's this guy named Raul at the Mint who I always give props to because he just did the bud drop on New Year's night. I mean, come on. I didn't even think about that idea. That makes me so mad. We can tell him, hey, why not have the Leafly CEO as like a guest bud tender for the day, and then more people can come, people will come just because it's like a big deal.
Final or
What's that? So somebody just jump in. Can you still hear me?
I can still hear you, but you heard that too. I heard sort of a recording or something, or someone saying something
that was probably Raul writing down the idea.
I'm totally in. They are great customers. They are great retailers on Leafly. I would totally love to come and guest bud tend.
Guest bud tender for the day. So you get a great feel for what happens behind the retail thing as well. But I learned the hard way how difficult it is to be a cultivator, how difficult it is to be a bud tender, how challenging it is to be on the front lines. And I actually sat in 2015, the last project I did for my brother was try to open up a 16,000 square foot cultivation. And I realized I didn't have the skill sets to do that. It was basically project managing the development of a cultivation. So it is what it is.
House plant alive, right? Like here's a thought. I can't keep a house plant alive. Thank goodness there are myriads of other jobs in the industry in ways in which you can get involved.
Yeah, my mom is a fantastic gardener. In 2013, she has an acre full of plants. She tried to do an indoor cultivation with my brother, and it's just a total failure. She's like, how the heck does this work? You know, there's real skill sets that are very unique and important in this industry. But what else would you recommend? Like people, how would you recommend people get an education about this industry? What valuable resources? Certainly, we know what Leafly offers. What else would you say is out there that has helped you acquire knowledge, except for the experience, just day to day?
You know what? This industry is truly a community, right? I never worked professionally, whether it's partners, it's clients, it's stores, it's consumers who are just so open and willing to talk about what they do. I think we're here. If you're here and you're here for a while, you're here because you're passionate about something in this space, and the willingness of people to share that passion. I think I have learned so much in just conversations and curiosity, and like meeting someone who works in particular space and just hearing their story. I found that to be such a powerful way for so much rich information. Because it's not like you go, you don't go to you're a lawyer, I'm a lawyer. Like you're not going to go to your career counseling center in your law school and they're going to say, here, think about your career in cannabis, right? Like that's not, hopefully that's what's happening. Hopefully we are going to transition to that. Hopefully, and we are starting to see programs in colleges and universities to help open eyes to that. But in the absence of that, this couldn't be a more welcoming place for, industry association networking. And it just starts with a question. Tell me about what you do, how you got into it.
Yeah, and who you are. I mean, people who are watching this are going to get to know more about you, more about Leafly, more about the industry as a whole. So we really really, truly appreciate your time. I was a prosecutor. I always tell little tidbits for myself. I was a prosecutor interviewing people about witnesses, domestic violence victim, 85% domestic violence. I suspended a lot of sentences for drug related things unintentionally, but that's another story. But I'd be interviewing people all day long, and 10, 12 years, I was burnt out. I was drinking a lot, and I didn't even know why I was drinking a lot. And then waking up the next day with a hangover, going to work and still doing the same thing. But I was so bored with the repetitiveness of the same stuff. With the witnesses and the victims and the police officers and the experts and the lab techs. It was same thing every single day. But in this industry, there's so many themes and it touches on so many parts of the human experience. And the cannabis industry as a whole does. I mean, sometimes I don't like to say it, but sometimes I thank God for prohibition. Because if it wasn't for prohibition for the 50 years that needs to be unraveled, and all these humans need to think about freedom and choice and healthcare alternatives and homeopathic medicine and Western medicine. There's all these grand themes, economic themes, philosophical themes, public policy themes that are being wrestled with and evolving every day in the cannabis industry. And it's just so exciting. And I can tell that you understand them very well as well.
When I talk about this industry and what it's like to work in this industry, I use those Russian nesting dolls as sort of a metaphor for what this is. And there is something in this industry for everyone. You open one up, there's another doll lying within that. There's another doll. And for me, it's really the intellectual piece. Like you walking through your experience as a prosecutor. Have you ever been bored since your transition to cannabis?
No. That's a simple.
Why? Like, I love your framing of that. The large themes that this industry presents for us to grapple with. Human norms, political norms, legal norms, right? Like science, gardening, retail, technology. Like, if you can't find something to be interested in.
Yeah, absolutely. Just yesterday, I was talking about with a large cultivator here in Arizona doing a 4-stack and indoor grow, and it looks like a space age experiment, and they're brand new. And I'm like, the not the technology, but the practices that are evolving in indoor horticulture, I guess it's called. One day on Mars, 50 years from now, they're going to be able to say, oh yeah, we first caught that in the cannabis industry in 2015, 2020. That's the kind of, stuff that you don't even realize, you kind of realize is happening, but it's one of the things that makes industry so amazing.
Like, and the cross-pollination, no pun intended, of what we're learning here and how that will inform, right, farming practices outside of cannabis.
Mhm.
Like, and we're going to be able to say in 20, 30, 50 years, that came out of weed, that came out of legalization. And that's just one of the many things.
Yeah. And I'm doing some work down in Colombia, and, they're asking questions: indoor, greenhouse, outdoor, what's the best way to farm? And these are some things I would have never wondered this while I was sitting in a courtroom asking about the latest domestic violence trends. I'm like, this is great. This is interesting. This is humanity and all different aspects of it being designed, unraveled, created in this brand new industry. That's just beginning.
And what else lets you forge a path like this? What else gives you this opportunity? The opportunity, I also consider it a deep responsibility and obligation to forge a path, to do this differently, to do this the right way, and define that as an industry and community as a whole. Like, what an amazing opportunity. And shit, let's do it right.
So that ties us back into what Leafly has planned for maybe 2024 or the future. I mean, I'd like to talk about International Bud Tender Day, but is there anything else that you'd like to mention that's coming up for 2024 for Leafly, or any strategic moves that you guys are making that you want to highlight here?
For us, it's always been about, and we serve so many different communities, right? We talked about our bud tenders, our consumers, our retailers, and our brands. And for us, really, I think the magic comes out of the connections that we can build across each of those constituencies. So for us, it's always, we're a technology platform. We're a marketplace. What can we build? What tools can we build? What services can we bring to market to deepen those connections between those communities? Because that's what builds this industry, right? For us, we look at this and say, what do we need? What can we do for retailers? For us, it's about helping you get your name out there to bring more customers in the door. What does that mean for us, for consumers? We've got to get, for us, it's the helping you find what you need, using our science to say, Demitri, you like this product? Let us help you recommend something else you should try. Let me get you to the store that can provide that. Let me get you to that brand who's creating this new product. Let us tell you about, new form factors. I'm really into right now, drinks, but not necessarily canned drinks, like powder, like the portability of a powdered drink. Let me tell you about that experience. Let me give you confidence in that idea of a product, and really give you that impetus to say, go out and try this. See this, if this works for you. All right, didn't work for you? Great. Let me help recommend something else. Why do we do all that? Because it's ultimately about building that foundation of trust in that connection. And that's what we're here to do, to build trusted connections that help you through your cannabis journey.
And you guys are worldwide. Where do you guys see, like, you're second to the United States? Where's your biggest audience? Do you guys have data on that? I assume.
We do. We're really focused on North America in US and Canada. But, we've had a long history of working, and we actually, until 2020, actually had our site up and running in Germany. Like, what's happening over there.
Yes.
And we're any day now, we're going to see this legalization happen there. We're waiting for those dominoes to fall. We are primarily English language site, but we see traffic from the UK, ANZ, Spain, with their long history of clubs. And so of the Leafly platform is that it's education and information. We're non-plant touching. And that is the beauty of the web, right? Like we can get that out to everyone around the world. And we think that's so critical in that journey of that foundational journey of education. We're going to start with you here because someday you're going to be here where you're going to be able to buy legal cannabis, and we want to be your partner all along that journey.
So you have this very data-driven, scientific, educational platform. So we should bear
Even download our app.
Yeah, no, but it's been fascinating to get to know you. I look forward to following your journey at Leafly and following Leafly some more. We love you guys. You guys have always been a fan favorite. The colors of your logo just are like embedded in my mind. Maybe it's because of the lanyards. You guys have beautiful lanyards.
Thank you so much. We are, we're grateful for the partnership with MITA. We're grateful for all of what Arizona brings to Leafly. It is such an amazing consumer base we have there, as well as just an amazing, rich network of retailers and brands we get to work with in the state.
Yeah, we should talk about doing some lanyards going nationally with all of our different events and stuff.
All right.
We don't have a lanyard connection, but there's like information on there, so it's really cool. So Yoko, it's been a pleasure to get to know you. Any closing thoughts for the audience?
Well, I'll be looking forward to coming back to doing our travel log series and our guest bartender.
Yeah, let's go. The MITA team has been waiting to do this cannabis unknown, Spain and Hawaii. I mean, when I was doing dispensary retail competition for licenses in the fall of 2015, I was being introduced to all these growers and homeopathic individuals that were doing things in Hawaii, and none of them got licenses. So all their practices are just kind of falling to the wayside, but there's so much unique information in there. And Japan, I don't know what's happening in Japan culturally, traditionally, with the seven pepper Japanese spice. Yeah. What, we have a whole episode on the 7 pepper Japanese spice.
I'm gonna go and try and find a recipe with actual.
Well, that will be embedded in Leafly over here, so we'll get there. So it's been a pleasure, and we're gonna get offline. We're gonna talk to Raul, see if we can do that guest bartender thing, but we'll work out those details.
Let's do it.
Thank you for joining us.
Take care. Happy New Year.
Another episode of Meet Unchained.